Look, human. Good morning, fans, and all starships in the Alpha and Beta quadrants. This is Engaging with Picard on the Movers and Shakers Unlimited Network. I am your host, Josh Pritchett, writer, film critic, and organizer of the Northern Virginia Star Trek Meetup Group. And joining me once again is my friend and special guest co-host. He is a screenwriter, he is a podcaster, and he has just recently launched a very engaging new show on YouTube, Mr. Harry Wilkinson.
Hey, everybody. How you
Hey,
doing?
great. Listen, I watched the first episode of your show
Oh,
about the multiverses, and I thought you did a really good job. And I look
thanks.
forward to seeing what you got coming up next.
Thanks. I just actually just dropped episode 2. Haven't done the YouTube version of it yet, but the podcast is out there. Wherever you get them, Spotify. I just added Apple to the list, so pretty much everywhere. And in episode 2, we're talking about the history of the multiverse in DC Comics. And we're also talking about a new sort of wrinkle on multiverse theory. It's something called the the many interacting worlds theory. It's kind of a spin-off of the many worlds theory. So yeah, check it out. It's some interesting stuff.
It really is, and I liked what you did. And I mean, if you're a big fan of the Crisis of Infinite Earths, either in the Arrow universe or back in the original comic books, you should definitely check it out. Or even if you just are fascinated by the possibility of multiverses, which I think are a really huge thing right now in physics and science, you should definitely check out Harry's podcast and his YouTube channel. So, on that note, I think it is time for us to get into this week's episode. It is called Episode 9, Hide and Seek, and Let's Engage. So, the episode opens once again with a Frankenstein motif. There's a huge thunderstorm over Chateau Picard. We see Chris trying to rush his friend, the clinic doctor, and her son off of the Lucera. As the Borg are starting to appear. It is not really clear how they know the Borg are coming, unfortunately. So they're attempting to get off the ship. Before Chris can grab additional weapons, though, the Borg show up and they have to get off the ship and run to the chateau. Chris is wounded during this chase, and Picard makes the decision to have Talon transport Chris and his friends back to her apartment in Los Angeles, while Picard, Seven, and Rafi and Talon all attempt to make a stand against the Borg onslaught. And Adam Sung is with them, apparently leading the charge, while the Borg Queen, who has now taken over the form of Dr. Agnes Girardi, is attempting to take over the ship. Harry, you want to take it from there?
Yeah. So there are Girardi is fighting back against the Borg Queen. She's not going to let her take over the ship. She locks it down with a digital key, and she boots up a hologram that looks just like Elnor, which is primed for battle. And so single-handedly, Elnor starts knocking out these Borg. And then meanwhile, we're flashing back to Picard's childhood, where he is remembering a game of hide and seek that he played with his mother that went terribly awry. Let's just say that. And this is happening sort of at the same time as they're fighting the Borg outside of the Chateau Picard, and he's looking for a plan to fight off Sung and these Borg people. Sung tells him he should just give it up, otherwise he's going to get really hurt. Picard tells him, "You have to find us first." And his memory of what happened with his mom reminds him of the tunnels that run underneath the vineyard. So he and Talon head for those.
Yeah. And at the same time, Seven and Rafi attempt to outflank the Borg by going around the chateau to get to the ship, while Picard and Talon decide to go underneath the chateau and get to the ship. Apparently, there is a passage there that way, and to get to it, Picard has to, turn this secret knob inside this bookcase to access the PICARD cave. Side just note for full disclosure here, I have something similar at home. It's behind my grandfather clock. I just have to turn the secret thing to the hour my parents were murdered. Little Batman joke there. Any rate, so they go into the tunnels, and Sung and the Borg head into the chateau and trying to search for Picard, Talon, and their allies, while at the same time, Rafi and Seven are fighting their way around. They lose their only phaser and are then forced to use whatever weapons are at hand as they make their way to the Lacera. And meanwhile, the battle inside of Girardi's body and inside the Lacera is continuing. The holographic version of Eleanor is destroyed after he's managed to take out several Borg. But now Girardi and the Borg Queen are having these confrontations where Girardi tells her that the opposite, whereas the Borg Queen was using endorphins and good and positive feelings to take over, Girardi's using the opposite, sadness, frustration, and she's psychoanalyzing the Borg Queen, explaining that your whole problem is you're alone. You hate being alone. It makes you so, and it's never enough. You have to have more and more. And eventually, Seven and Rafi get on board the ship and manage to take down Girardi Borg Queen. Unfortunately, they are also locked out of the computer. Harry?
So Girardi sort of dealing with the Borg Queen suggests that creating a new kind of Borg that's one that's based on real connection instead of assimilation, and that saves people. And she uses Seven as an example of what the Borg could be if they were, guided by conscience and acceptance rather than assimilation. So Picard, meanwhile, so they make a deal. The Borg is going to save Seven, but they have to give the Girardi Borg the ship. So that's the deal they make.
We forgot to mention that the Borg Queen injures Seven. She's faking being down, and then she injures Seven. And then Rafi is worried she's about to lose another person because she's already lost Eleanor, the real Eleanor. So she's hanging in there. But meanwhile, back at the chateau, they're slowly making Picard and Talon are slowly making their way through the Picard cave and the tunnels, and Sung has found his way down there. He's found the secret to get to the tunnels, and um, Picard starts having these memories about everything that happened, all these things that he's tried to block out his whole life. Um, and eventually he finds his way back into his mother's solarium. That's the big glass enclosed greenhouse area that was attached to the house that we've been, going back to all season. And he finally explains to Talon, he remembers that when he was a child, he saw his mother had, after the incident where she dragged him down to the tunnels and his father saved them, his father locked Picard's mother in the solarium, and then she took her own life, and Picard was the one who found the body. And it kind of goes back to something a lot of people have been talking about. When the first time we ever knew anything about Picard's mother was way back in season 1 of Star Trek: The Next Generation, in an episode called "Where No One Has Gone Before," and Picard sees this image of his mother looking like a very elderly, pristine woman. And so we find out that Picard explains that he tried to keep this imagination of his mother, growing old, being, this, matriarchal, soft-spoken person, because it was just easier for him to deal with. It was then because he didn't want to remember his mother's death. Then Sung and the Borg show up. Harry?
So, Rios is able to kind of MacGyver his way out of the apartment where he's been locked in by Picard. And he shows up just in time to help Picard shoot down the Borg. Sung has him sort of he's holding a gun on them, and he thinks he's going to win. He plans to shoot them. Rios tells him that he doesn't have the DNA code to use the gun, and it's going to blow up in his hand. So he tosses the gun up in the air. He makes a run for it. So he's gone. And meanwhile, back on the ship, Seven has been healed, and it looks like she's been sort of re-assimilated. And then they sort of turn the ship back over to the Jurati Borg Queen, who transports them back to the vineyard, and she goes off to, we assume, create a new kind of Borg.
Yeah. And then meanwhile, Sung has managed to escape. He is apparently going to make one more attempt to take down the rocket with Rene Picard, Jean-Luc's ancestor, and Picard rallies the troops. They're going to head back and try to stop him. And of course, that's more or less where the episode ends.
We forgot to say that the Jurati Borg Queen's last message to Picard is that there must be two Renes, one who lives and one who dies. So the mission must not be postponed.
Yes. Excuse me. Sorry, I'm having a bit of a cold, everybody. That you're right. And we don't really know what that means. It's something very cryptic. But it has seemed as though all season the Borg Queen has known more about what was going on than everybody else, including probably Q himself, who does not make an appearance in this week's episode. But there is a trailer for next week's episode that drops. Apparently, there will be a lot of engagement between Picard and Q. From what we know from the last couple of episodes, Q is dying. So we are, it is probably going to be like last season when Picard had his last moments with Data again. There'll be something similar to that where Q will release a lot of things that he has held back. And so that should be very exciting. So our heroes apparently go off using Talon's transporter to get them back to the launch site. We do not know, though, how Sung is going to get there, but we'll get into that in a few minutes. So I think at this point we will move into the awesome and not so awesome parts of this episode. Harry, what were some of the things you thought were awesome?
Well, some of the fight scenes were really interesting. I liked the hologram that Girardi was able to boot up. I liked the idea of the Elnor hologram and the locking down the ship with a digital key. Unfortunately, that doesn't last very long. I like sort of the relationship between Rios and his doctor girlfriend. And I like the sort of exploration of Picard's childhood relationship with his mother, and we finally get to see what's behind that door, and what he's been, I guess, essentially blocking out of his memory for all these years.
Yeah, I was also very glad to have Evan Gore or Eva Gora. I'm sorry, I'm mispronouncing his name. Eva Gora back in. He's such a terrific actor, and he is a great mixed martial arts guy. That of course, he's been completely underutilized this whole season, which I found very disappointing and very frustrating. Personally, because he would have been so useful in this, but instead he's just been like part of this I guess you call it pop psychology thing with Rafi, and that she's losing yet another person, and her own inability to handle loss, which I'll get into that in a minute. Another thing, obviously, I think it was good that we had more Jamie Gillis in this, as Picard's father. I still think he would have been much better if they would have saved him for Strange New Worlds, where he could have played a young Core, but that's neither here nor there. I thought the use of the tunnels was pretty good, but I kind of predicted that at the beginning of the episode when the Borg showed up. It's like, oh, hey, we've got these really snazzy tunnels. We could use, and I bet you there's a secret passage out by the ship that we could use to retake the ship. Instead, it went not in a direction I would have liked. But getting into the not so awesome, okay, I didn't really understand why it was that only Talon and Picard went into the tunnels. It really didn't serve much of a purpose, I think, for Seven and Rafi to try to go around when Picard could have said to Seven, wait, instead of you guys going around, I know this, we have this underground tunnel that my family used to use to fight the Nazis back in the 40s. So let's use that. We got a passage to get out of there, which I had to wonder something here. Picard's father forbid him to go down to the tunnels. Did he later go back into the tunnels after his mother died and explored them and found the secret passage? Or did he, that was a little bit confusing. Also, his father said there were 1,000 ways to die. Now, that was probably hyperbole, but I would have thought the tunnels would have been a lot more dangerous.
You don't call that dangerous. You're right.
Yeah. I'm not necessarily it had to go full on Indiana Jones, but just some more, pitfalls or something in there that could have been utilized to add to the action.
Right.
I think the biggest thing I was mostly disappointed in was when Picard finally had the memories of what happened to his mother, that he didn't have more emotion about it. Patrick Stewart has such a great emotional range, which is something I've loved about how he's played the character of Picard for so many years now, since since he first played it in 1987. I was a little bit stunned at how he just doesn't get has breaks down. He doesn't break down and cry. Not that he had to, but just that
Mhm.
I felt like, okay, this is like this confrontation, and people under mental duress can find ways to, change memories or remember something differently. So it's not terribly surprising that he managed to make himself remember the death of his mother in a different sort of way. I mean, a lot of people,
Yeah, I didn't quite buy that. I
yeah,
mean, I see what you're saying, but I didn't quite buy how you would block a memory like that forever. And
well,
as far as his emotion, and we talked about this last week, his emotional state and the performance of Patrick Stewart. I noticed that he's looking kind of frail these days, and he's getting up in years, and it may be that he's not quite able to access the energy to to put out that kind of anger or real emotive performance. Because you're absolutely right. He's sort of been on almost on autopilot for the entire series.
yeah. I mean, I think he had a lot more energy at the beginning of season one,
Mm-hmm.
and a little bit, but yeah, you're right that it does feel like, I don't think it's disinterest in doing this. I don't think he's trying to phone it in. I think he's giving the best he can. But I think, yeah, maybe he just, I mean, everybody keeps talking about, William Shatner is 93 and he's flying into outer space. And, I just saw him about a month ago and he looked amazing. And you would never believe he was in his 90s. And yet Patrick is looking, for a guy that used to, I don't know what it's been. Maybe the virus. He was, as far as we know, he never got COVID, thankfully.
I think so.
But there could have been a lot of things going on in his personal life lately that have just really, and I think
Yeah,
and like you said, the whole recent thing where, oh, we're going to cut the show down to 3 years instead of
yeah,
5.
yeah. Well,
Um,
most people don't age like Shatner's been. I mean, he's
yeah,
been very, very lucky. So
yeah.
I think it has more to do with that than you know, hi- uh, just whatever it is that is making him more frail is probably why he's had to pull back in his performance.
Yeah, it could very well be health related issues,
Mm,
and hence that's why you had more of the show is focused more on Rafi,
mm.
Seven, Chris, and Agnes. That could very well be what's going on here.
Yeah,
And they really just want to kind of okay, kind of. And I think I heard somewhere that they've actually have completed most of the principal photography for season 3
mm, hmm
of the show. So, I mean, I could be wrong about that. If anybody thinks I'm wrong, please let us know what you've heard. Um, Getting back to what we were talking about, though, I think, well, okay, I go back to part of the awesome. I've been talking about for most of the season how there has been with Sung a whole Frankenstein metaphor. Okay. And so when the show opens with, okay, thunderstorms and stuff over the Chateau Picard, the old decrepit castle, very gothic universal monsters kind of thing, it really felt like that. And I kind of enjoyed that. But I think you certainly have, you had a lot of that. And I think that they have had a lot of other problems with the writing and stuff. But overall, I mean, I'd have to give this episode about a C if I was going to rank it. I think there was. Oh wait, I know one other thing that kind of just kind of got, and I hate to nitpick here, but how did Chris know how to hack into Talon's technology? Because as far as we know, the people that Talon works for have technology that far exceeds anything that the Federation has at this point.
Yeah,
So
I don't know how he did that, but
yeah,
he was. They don't go into that very
right,
much, but he gets treated like crap for this entire episode. I mean, first he gets, beamed out of his own ship and locked out in his girlfriend's apartment, so he
yeah.
has to MacGyver his way out of that just in time. Um, then they give his ship away to a Borg queen. I mean, if I were him, I would never want to see these people ever again.
Well, technically, it wasn't really his ship anymore. He did give it to Seven because he became captain of the Stargazer. And
Oh, that's right. That's
yeah,
right.
so and then of course they have to figure out how they're going to get back to the 24th century, which sorry, the
I mean,
25th century, because we are in 2401.
right.
So I'm guessing with Q's dying embers, he's going to send them back, or somehow they're going to send a message to, and fingers crossed here, maybe this is going to get into predictions, the Enterprise E under the command of Captain Worf, and he's going to whip around the sun, find them, and beam them home, and then they're going to go back. Which would be awesome, a great send-off, because we do know that going into season 3, the whole of the Next Generation cast, minus Will Wheaton, sadly, and Denise Crosby, not so sad. No, sorry, just kidding. I like Denise Crosby personally, but Tosh is not my favorite character. That they will be getting back together for one last adventure. I don't know how that will impact the other cast members of Picard, because frankly, I really like the rest of the cast a lot, and I would love to see them get a spinoff where they're on the Stargazer together, and you've got a more episodic TV series like what we're going to have, a Strange New Worlds, and Chris could be the captain. Maybe Rafi becomes his first officer, although I think he did have a first officer in the episode. Seven will be there. Maybe they get finally. Oh, that's one last thing we didn't point out is Seven revealed something to Rafi, that she had tried to join Starfleet after Voyager got back from the Delta Quadrant, and they wouldn't let her in because she was Borg. Janeway went to bat for her, even threatened to resign. We all know how well that worked for Picard when he went to, when he tried to get them to finish the relocation of the Romulans, and they didn't do it. So apparently Seven had urged Janeway not to worry about it. She'd find her own way. And obviously she has. And so you could have this whole thing where maybe, Seven and Rafi are together on Stargazer. Maybe they find a way to get her into Starfleet. Obviously, Girardi will have gone off somewhere. Hopefully Elnor will be alive again, and hopefully we will find where Dash is or what's going on there. Speaking of characters that have been completely underutilized this season. So what else? Have we got anything else on the not so awesome front or the awesome front that you want to point out?
Yeah. So this whole idea of excuse me, this whole idea of sort of changing the Borg into something, more benign. I kind of doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I mean, because if we're gonna go, if she does that, then that changes the Borg completely.
Well, I think what she was saying was it's going to change a certain aspect of the Borg, that she's going to keep her Borg, this new Borg, on the QT for the next 300 years until 2401. And then we're going to see that's the Borg we see show up in the first episode. And it's this new, because they want to now join the Federation, that they're ready to become. And to me, that harkens back to season 7 of Next Generation, when you had Hugh and you had all of these Borg members that had become unassimilated, but were still Borg technically. And they were, they had been separated from the collective because they had all become individuals because of Hugh's exposure to the Enterprise. And so the Continuum separated them and wanted nothing more to do with them. And then Of course, we went on later to have the events of Star Trek First Contact, where we saw the Borg collective, and we finally met the Queen for the first time. So obviously, this is going to be something on the underground. It's going to be out on the fringes where neither the Federation nor the collective are. And when she shows up again in 2401, she will be a brand new Borg Queen and ready to talk peace with the Federation, which should be interesting. That's how I'm reading it.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, this whole thing where where we saw the alternate universe with the Earth Confederation and its destruction of the Borg and other races throughout the galaxy was because of what Sung did. And probably also because the Borg Queen originally destroys Renee's the Europa mission, and it might also have something, might still have something to do, because apparently there were several things that had to be stopped. One of them was you had to stop the FBI agent from having his, which they should have done more with.
Oh yeah, like they completely dropped that altogether. What happened to him?
Well, we know he was fired or forced to resign from the FBI. That when he realized that PICARD and Guinan were not hostile aliens, when PICARD told him about what was really going on, his encounter, explained the encounter he had with the Vulcans, and that it wasn't a hostile alien incursion, that it was just this thing, and he misunderstood it, and it didn't go, and then I think on that note, they the agent just let them go and left the FBI, and had kind of a moment of inner clarity and peace with the fact that I did this, and this is what happened, and now I can be at peace with what happened when I was a kid.
It just seems like that was something, a storyline they kind of just threw in to pad it out. So hopefully, I mean, they resolve that in the final episode in some way. But
yeah, hopefully. And then I think it was that. I guess this has been a thing with time travel in Star Trek and other science fiction franchises, is that was it predestined that we were supposed to go back in time and do this? And apparently, yes, it was. So we have a lot of these things that are going on that will set up for the beginnings of the Federation, that will set up things for Zephyr Cochrane. We talked about, okay, is Chris's friend's son going to become like a scientist, and maybe the guy who's going to teach Noonien Sung about faster than light travel? And not Sung, I'm sorry, Zephyr Cochrane. Is Sung going to go off and start the eugenics wars?
Right. There's a lot to.
Is his daughter, is Corey going to be the one who starts them? Is she going to realize, hey, I'm superior to my father. He doesn't exist without me. I'm going to create a whole race of people like me. We go back to the Frankenstein thing.
Yeah. They've got a lot to wrap up here, so I hope they do a good job with the final episode, because there's a lot of loose ends that have to come together.
There are a lot, and it's very concerning. I feel like that, as we've been saying, it's felt like the story itself has moved very slowly since episode 3. I mean, there's been a lot of action, but it just feels like we get in one mishap after another.
Right. We go off on tangents here and there.
And it seems like there's a lot of character development. I mean, not so much development, but there's like a lot of this angst between characters.
Yeah. That's been the focus of the series.
Yeah, and it's like, it's not really driving the story. It's like, dudes, can we please answer some questions here? And we're slowly starting to get them, but I think it's like, okay, they're writing it in a way that says, okay, here's what's going on, answer it for yourself. Figure it out for yourself. And that's like, that's not our job. That's your job as the writer Don't just imply things, actually explain it, you know.
Right. One
Um,
one more thing, in the not so awesome category. It's just
yeah,
like through the whole season, it seems like there's been an awful lot of poor decision making. Like
yeah,
Girardi saying, "Oh, hey, I'll just go into the Borg Queen's head for a little while. You can pull me right out. What could happen?" you know,
yeah.
and Rios just deciding to beam up his girlfriend and her son to the ship without any concern for the timeline or anything like that.
Yeah.
Picard beaming them back and locking them out. It seems like a lot of bad decision making is what I'll say.
Yeah, that, and then also, and as I pointed out, the whole thing that sort of drove me crazy was that, okay, he lets Rafi and Seven go try this outflanking thing, which is way too dangerous. Instead, it's like saying, "Oh wait, we got this cool series of tunnels underneath the house, and we can just go through them. And I know of a passageway to get us around to the other side of the ship, and we can outflank the Borg that way. Why didn't we do that?
Right.
Instead, we used the whole time to continue the psychoanalysis of Picard and his relationship with his mother, and which I have to say, and I've talked with several friends about this. That's just the weakest part of the series, right there. It's just that part has just been. I know that there's something there that Q wanted to show Picard. That's part of this whole thing he wants to do before he dies. But at the same time, I wish they'd done it a little differently. I wish they'd come up with a better way to do it. Honestly, the strongest part of the whole season has been the Agnes Borg Queen thing. I know you said that was a bad choice for Agnes and the Borg Queen to get in each other's heads, but I think
She does make a good Borg,
go.
though. She does make a good Borg.
She does make a good Borg Queen, and apparently this is what's going to go forward, because I think we're about to have something that I don't think we ever thought we were going to have. We were going to have that Kittimer moment between the Borg and the Federation, that like we had with the Klingons and the Federation way back in Star Trek 60, Undiscovered Country. Who would have imagined that would have happened with the Borg?
Yeah. I still have trouble imagining that, but it'll be interesting to see where they go with it.
Yeah, but as they pointed out in Star Trek Discovery, all the way in the 32nd century, the Admiral pointed out, hey, we haven't heard much about the Borg. They haven't been a threat in 600 years.
Mm-hmm.
So, we don't, obviously they know about the Borg. They know they're still out there somewhere. We don't know what's going on. Maybe some point in Star Trek Discovery, we will talk about them. Who knows what's going to happen next year with this season, with the final season of Picard and the return of the Next Generation cast. There's a lot of speculation. So, okay, so I think we're about to move into our predictions for the final episode. I'm going to make a prediction based off of what I saw in the trailer teaser for next week, and that is Talon is going to somehow substitute herself for Renee in this mission. I don't know why. We just see a scene of her walking through the hallways in a Europa mission uniform, that she's going to finally confront Renee and say, hey, I've had your back all these years, and you got to listen to me. Something. We know Picard and Q are going to have a final, I don't want to say confrontation, but they're going to have a final meeting of the minds. We know Sung is going to try to do something to stop the launch. What Corey's role in this is going to be, we don't know yet. There could be a lot of things. You and I have talked about how there should be something about the Bell riots and all this. I don't know. I have a feeling it won't be, but unfortunately, I think they missed a great opportunity there for that.
They sure did.
To revisit that, even if they couldn't get Avery Brooks to come in and reprise Cisco, which that would have been quite awesome, is to have had a thing. I mean, if Picard was going to have any final regrets, is just or maybe they feel like that. Hey, they solved all that way back in the pilot episode of Deep Space Nine. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think they did. I mean, there was a lot of tension between Cisco and Picard because Cisco blamed him for the death of his wife because at that time Picard had been assimilated by the Borg.
Yeah.
So they are not the best of friends. We'll put it that way. um, and they never followed up with with any other interactions between the two of them. So that's a big mystery. I'd love to see how their relationship developed, or if it got better or worse, or what. But they never explored that for some reason.
Yeah, and which is surprising because they seem to know a lot of the same people.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know, and certainly, you know, I feel like there should have been something there, and
Mm.
it would be nice if they could, had a moment where, but again, it's a matter of, okay, is Avery Brooks willing to come back for one more episode or
Yeah.
one more appearance? It doesn't sound like it.
I don't
I
think
don't
he's
even think he really does cons anymore, does he?
no, rarely, very rarely does he show up. Um,
Right.
so
So and as you know, I got to meet him a few years ago. So I think I was lucky just to get that.
yeah, you were.
Yeah. So okay. So probably no appearance by Captain Cisco, unfortunately. Um, I don't. I think I'm going to go back to my original idea that maybe the Enterprise E comes back in time and picks up Picard and crew, and we see Worf at the end, and then because Michael Doran, who plays Worf, has said that he only wants to come back to Worf if there's going to be something significant with his character. He doesn't want to just come in, spend 3 hours of having makeup put on. He wants to actually interact with Patrick. He wants to do the whole 9 yards. So I think that is not an impossibility, especially if it's setting up for season 3
Mm.
of the show, where he will be a major part of the crew of everything.
Do we know anything else about season 3? They're bringing back all the TNG crew, you said.
Yeah.
But do we know, like, plot wise, anything about what's happening?
No, I think they're keeping things under wraps about what they're going to do.
Mm.
Um, I'm assuming that there is a plan. Nobody is talking about it right now. I'm assuming that the crew is, I hope it's not a situation where, okay, they're going to have everybody come in and then kill them off one at a time every episode. Another cast member is going to die. And that's how we end the Next Generation, is everybody dies. That would suck.
Yeah.
Frankly, that would be a downer, and I don't want that. So let's have, I'm going to hope that it's going to be something really awesome, a great story that will come out. And
it's going to be the final season, right?
it will be the final season for Picard next year. So at any rate, but I mean, the only thing we know is we've seen this one clip in the in that trailer where Riker and Picard are pointing phasers at something, and Riker says, "Are you ready for this?" And Picard says, "I was born ready," or something, words to that effect. So again, that might go back to. I want to mention something. This will be in I think this will be in our remarks. Our producer Brandon has sent me a link to Hollywood Reporter. And I think this is a news story about positive COVID production Omicron, about people who, there was an outbreak on the set of Picard. So that might have been part of the problem there.
Yeah, as far as Picard's kind of low energy level.
That could very well be what was going on there. And that was why the production slowed down for the last 2 years on Picard after the first season, because your main cast member is 80 something years old, and they're filming in Los Angeles, which was one of the hottest areas for COVID over the last couple of years. Well, meanwhile, Strange New Worlds and Discovery were filming in Canada, which had largely gotten its COVID levels under control. and people felt safe enough. Although apparently there were some outbreaks during that time, and people had to quarantine in their trailers for days on end and be tested. But Canada has a much better healthcare system. Sorry, I had to say that.
Everybody knows that.
Yes. And so I guess we can assume that part of the reason for a lot of low energy and a lot of things was just because of COVID. And, hopefully we are seeing the end of that as, we move further into 2022, that, as we're all getting back to normal. But, we will see. So any other theories or anything?
Well, yeah, I go back to this this message that the Borg Queen left for Picard about there needing to be 2 Renees in order for it to be successful. So that kind of suggests to me that this alternate timeline is somehow going to continue. That it's going to split off. And so I don't think that Q will be able to turn it back, but in some way, there's going to be 2 timelines. I'm thinking they're heading in that direction. I think I don't know what they're going to do with the character of Jurati. I mean, she's clearly fused with the Borg Queen now, so she's probably not going to be much involved with the show anymore. I have a feeling Rios is going to want to stay in the 21st century with his newfound love. She was begging him to stay in this episode, but he felt he had a duty to save Picard. But now that their ride is gone, essentially, and their way back, he may reconsider that.
I don't know, and
since I guess they have to make room for the whole new TNG cast coming back, they may be just sweeping everybody else out.
Well, I
hope
think
not, but I like them.
Yeah, I think they would keep Jerry Ryan, and I don't think a person who's half Borg, half human is going to necessarily. It would be a daily struggle for her to hide in the 21st century. So I think there's a chance that I don't know. I mean, maybe Chris brings his girlfriend and her son back to the 25th century with him. Maybe they. I mean, although she may feel like, well, I have obligations here. I don't know. Honestly, I don't know what's going to happen there. But or maybe he'll leave and she and her son will have a newfound hope for what happens next. I'm not so sure about the 2 timelines. I think the whole purpose of this was to try to prevent the Earth Confederation, unless that's the point of the final season, is that the Earth Confederation has found a way into the prime timeline and is going to start invading and trying to destroy our Federation and everything. And so Picard and Riker and the gang have to lead a charge to stop them. To block them out. I've always sort of thought it'd be kind of cool to have an evil alternate, a war between the mirror universe and the Federation. I've always thought that would be very interesting. And probably, as we know from the events of Deep Space Nine, the mirror universe, the Terran Empire, and then the Klingon Cardassian alliance collapsed. And there's been a lot of speculation that a new type of Federation evolved and was created, something like that, with all the races that had formerly been enslaved by the Klingon Cardassian alliance. So, but I don't think that's going to play anything in this show. I think there is the possibility of, they certainly they certainly seem to like to play in that field of evil alternate universes
Oh,
in Discovery and in Picard. And part of me is kind of like, well, that could be interesting, but part of me is kind of like, so many people are tired of it
yeah,
now.
we've done it so many times before.
And
You know.
yeah, and you've already got Michelle Yao and her character Philippa Georgiou
Hmm.
getting her spinoff in Section 31. And it's very, very likely based on the popularity of the film Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Oh, it's an awesome film. Have you seen it yet?
I am hoping to see it in the next couple of weeks myself. Yeah, but
It's terrific. She's just, it's
yeah,
like, she does everything from martial arts to great dramatic acting to comedy. It's
yeah.
really great.
Well, I'm hopeful. Yeah, I'm hopeful that you know, because it would be a real boom for us as fans, and also just who are both fans of Michelle Yeoh and Star Trek, if she got Best Actress next year. Hopefully, the committee will remember that. But at any rate, we are approaching our deadline here. So, Harry, you want to go ahead and promote your show and everything before we leave,
Sure.
and how people can find you?
Okay, episode 2 of Multiverse Maniac is now available. I just dropped today on Spotify or anywhere else you get your podcasts. We're talking about the history of DC Comics, going all the way back to 1953, which was the first encounter with the multiverse, which involved not Barry Allen, as people would expect, but Wonder Woman. So we'll talk about that, and also a new kind of wrinkle on the many worlds theory, many interacting worlds, which many scientists think is more provable than any of the other multiverse theories. So you can check that out.
Yeah.
I'll have the YouTube version of it up in a couple of days. So please have a listen and smash those like and subscribe buttons. And
Yes.
any
Yeah.
comments are always welcome.
Okay. And just in closing, I'd like to say if you've enjoyed the content here on Movers and Shakers Unlimited, please like, share, and subscribe. It really helps us out a lot. We will be taking so next week, I will be back again for the final episode of Picard. And then the weekend after, my good buddy Chris Papillon and I are going to get together and talk about another exciting new Star Trek show, Star Trek Strange New Worlds. So you won't want to miss that. And you can reach me at Josh Pritchett Jr. on Facebook. My short story collection, Bigfoot and Other Tales of the Supernatural, is available on Amazon and Kindle. And also we are also the Northern Virginia Star Trek meetup is on meetup.org. If you are a resident of the Northern Virginia area or Southern Maryland or DC area and you really love Star Trek, please come on over, join us. We'd love to have you. Until next week, I am Josh Pritchett with Harry Wilkinson. Live long and prosper.